July 20th, 1944. 20,000 feet above occupied Europe. The inside of the B-17 is already becoming an oven. The bomber shakes violently as German flak bursts all around it. Black explosions tear through the sky. Pieces of metal slam through the fuselage. Oxygen lines hiss. Gauges tremble. Men shout into frozen oxygen masks. And then someone sees it. Fire. Not outside the aircraft. Inside. Orange flames crawl through the cockpit area, feeding on oxygen and fuel vapors. Thick smoke pours through the narrow compartment. Electrical wiring melts. The smell of burning insulation fills the aircraft. At 20,000 feet, there is nowhere to run. The B-17 Flying Fortress is carrying fuel, ammunition, oxygen tanks, and 10 men. One spark in the wrong place can turn the entire bomber into a fireball. The crew knows the rules. If the fire reaches the fuel system, they die. If the oxygen bottles ignite, they die. If the wings catch, they die. Below them lies occupied Europe. Above them waits enemy fighters. And inside the airplane, the fire keeps growing. The bomber bucks through violent turbulence as anti-aircraft shells continue to explode nearby. Engines roar at full power. The interphone crackles with confused voices. Men search desperately for extinguishers. They're not enough. There's not enough time. The flames are now only inches from critical equipment. Heat spreads through the cockpit. Smoke blinds the crew. Every second increases the chance of explosion. And then one man makes a decision that seems impossible. He reaches directly into the fire, not with special equipment, not with protective gloves, with his bare hands. At 20,000 feet, in freezing air, inside a burning bomber surrounded by enemy guns, he begins fighting the flames himself. How does a man do that? What makes someone ignore pain, ignore fear, and place his own body between a fire and an aircraft full of men? Because this is not simply the story of a damaged bomber. It is the story of a crew trapped between fire and gravity, a machine designed to survive enemy bullets but threatened by a single blaze inside its own skin. The men aboard cannot jump. They cannot land. They cannot escape. All they can do is watch as one crewman battles an enemy no gun can stop. Hours later, people on the ground will struggle to believe what happened inside that aircraft. Veteran airmen will call it impossible. Some will call it madness. Others will call it courage. But this story did not begin in the fire. To understand how a man ends up fighting a burning B-17 with his bare hands 20,000 feet above Europe, we have to go back. The summer of 1944 turns the skies over Europe into one of the deadliest battlefields in human history. Every morning, hundreds of American bombers leave England and climb into cold, thin air. Their destination changes. Their dangers do not. German fighters wait. Anti-aircraft guns wait. Weather waits. Death waits. Among the thousands of young Americans flying these missions is a crewman aboard a B-17 Flying Fortress. Like most men in the 8th Air Force, he is young, far younger than the responsibility placed upon him. The average life expectancy for bomber crews can be measured in missions. Every flight carries terrible odds. The crews wake before dawn. They eat hurried breakfasts. They receive target briefings inside guarded rooms. Maps are revealed. Routes are assigned. Some men write letters. Some joke. Some sit quietly. Everyone understands the possibility that they may never return. The B-17 itself earns a legendary reputation. Heavy armor, multiple machine guns. For engines, it is called the Flying Fortress because it appears capable of surviving anything, but appearances can be deceptive. At 20,000 feet, temperatures fall far below freezing. Oxygen becomes necessary to breathe. Frost forms inside the aircraft. Crewmen wear electrically heated suits and heavy gloves. Movement becomes difficult. Thinking becomes slower. Any mechanical problem can become fatal. The bomber's mission stretched deep into occupied Europe. The crew sees cities scarred by war. Smoke rises from factories. Rail yards spread below like giant webs. And always there are the guns. German anti-aircraft batteries fill the skies with black bursts. The crews call it flak. A shell does not need to score a direct hit. Fragments can shred aluminum, puncture fuel tanks, sever hydraulic lines, or kill crewmen instantly. Sometimes a single piece of metal changes everything. On the day of the mission, the bomber climbs into formation with dozens of other aircraft. The sky fills with silver wings. Engines thunder. Propellers blur. The formation pushes toward enemy territory. At first, the flight appears routine. Then the flak begins. Explosions surround the aircraft. Black clouds erupt nearby. The entire bomber shudders with every concussion. Crewmen report damage. Another burst. Another impact. Then something inside the aircraft catches fire. Perhaps damaged equipment. Perhaps burning fluid. Perhaps shattered electrical wiring. The exact cause matters less than the result. Fire inside a bomber is every crewman's nightmare. The flames spread quickly. Smoke fills the compartment. The aircraft continues flying because it must. The formation cannot stop. Enemy territory lies below. The nearest friendly airfield lies far away. The crew searches for extinguishers. They attempt emergency procedures. But the fire continues. Heat increases. Paint begins to blister. The danger becomes obvious. The aircraft carries thousands of rounds of ammunition. It carries fuel. It carries oxygen. Each element makes the fire more dangerous. The man who moves toward the flames understands the risk. He knows burns are certain. He knows the fire may suddenly explode. He knows there may only be seconds remaining. Still, he reaches forward, his hands in the flames. He smothers burning material. He tears away damaged sections. He fights the fire directly. The heat burns skin. Smoke fills his lungs. The aircraft continues shaking violently around him. Outside, German guns still fire. Inside, a single man battles ablaze. Crewmen watch in disbelief. The freezing temperatures at altitude make the situation even more surreal. Outside the aircraft, the air is far below zero. Inside, the fire creates unbearable heat. The contrast is almost impossible to imagine. One moment his hands freeze. The next they burn. But gradually, the flames begin to weaken. Smoke starts to clear. The immediate danger begins to fade. The aircraft remains damaged. The crew remains deep over enemy territory. But the fire no longer controls the aircraft. The bomber turns toward home. The journey back feels endless. Every vibration causes concern. Every unusual sound creates fear. The crew wonders whether hidden damage remains. They watch the engines. They monitor fuel. They wait. Eventually, the English coast appears. Airfields emerge below. The bomber descends. Landing gear extends. The aircraft touches the runway. Only after the engines stop do many crewmen fully understand what has happened. They leave the aircraft. They examine the burned areas. They see the damage. And they look at the man whose hands bear the cost of saving the airplane. Military aviation contains countless examples of courage. Pilots attacking impossible targets. Gunners defending crippled bombers. Crews staying with damaged aircraft. But moments like this stand apart because there is no enemy soldier directly involved. No dramatic dogfight. No weapon. Only fire. Only fear. Only a decision. The man who fought the flames does not act for medals. He does not act for glory. He acts because 9 other men depend upon him. Because abandoning the fire means abandoning the crew. Because in war, courage often appears in ordinary moments. A hand reaching forward. A decision lasting seconds. An action that changes everything. The B-17 itself may eventually disappear. The war may eventually end. But the memory of what happened inside that burning aircraft survives. Not because of the machine, but because of the man. The engines finally become silent. The B-17 sits safely on the runway. Smoke drifts from damaged sections of the aircraft. Ground crews rush forward. Medical personnel arrive. Crewmen climb out one by one, exhausted and shaken. Only now do they fully understand how close they came to dying. A fire at 20,000 feet rarely offers second chances. Inside the bomber, burned equipment and blackened metal tell the story. The flames had moved dangerously close to critical systems. A few more minutes, a little more fuel, one stronger gust of oxygen. The outcome might have been very different. The crew survives because one man refuses to surrender to panic. In the years after the war, thousands of stories emerged from bomber crews across Europe. Some describe aerial battles. Others describe emergency landings, prisoner camps, and impossible missions. Yet, many veterans remember something simpler. They remember people. The gunner who stayed at his position. The navigator who remained calm. The engineer who fixed an engine. The crewman who fought a fire with his own hands. Because war is often decided by individuals making impossible decisions in impossible moments. The man at the center of this story does not command armies. He does not change the outcome of the war. His name may not appear in every history book, but for the men aboard that bomber, he changes everything. Their futures, their families, their lives. Some return home, some marry, some raise children, some grow old, all because one man chooses action over fear. The B-17 Flying Fortress becomes one of the great symbols of the Second World War. Thousands are built, thousands are lost. Their crews endure freezing temperatures, enemy fighters, and constant danger. Yet steel alone never wins wars. Engines do not create courage. Machines do not make sacrifices. People do. The burned hands eventually heal. The war eventually ends. The skies over Europe become peaceful again. But certain moments refuse to disappear. A burning aircraft, 20,000 feet of empty air beneath it, 9 men waiting, and 1 man stepping toward the flames. History often remembers victories. It remembers generals' battles and dates. But sometimes history survives because of smaller acts. A hand reaching into fire, a choice made in seconds, a refusal to give up. The men aboard that B-17 never forget what happened. Neither should we, because courage is not always loud. It does not always charge enemy positions. It does not always appear in headlines. Sometimes courage burns quietly inside a damaged aircraft high above the clouds. Sometimes it leaves scars. And sometimes it brings everyone home. The war ended. The bomber landed. The flames died. But the lesson remained. At 20,000 feet, surrounded by fire and fear, one man proved that the strongest weapon in war is not steel or guns or engines. It is a willingness to place your own hands into fire so that others may live.